Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 141 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts podcast network. I am your host, Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict. We've got a great show here tonight. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see some of the awesome faces of the guests we have tonight. But first, we're going to take a little downgrade and introduce Scott Sidless. Scott, how you doing?
All right. Yeah, we got to start from the bottom and work our way up. So we are missing Shane from when we did this last year. So I guess I'm at the bottom now. So thanks a lot, Shane.
Yes, we did this the week after the draft last year. Three of the same people. And as we were saying before the show, we upgraded from Shane Manila to Jagger May for our fourth guest this year. So thanks for coming on, Jagger. The other guys we have are Jeff Bell, Matt Price, and Michael Bower. I'll let you guys plug all your stuff at the end of the show. Don't want to do that twice since we got a lot to get to here. But basically, we want to get into the draft, and we're going to do a rookie mock draft. The one piece of news that did happen during the draft I want to mention. Oh, I also wanted to mention we should just take a moment to just appreciate that the Eagles did have the best actual NFL draft. We'll just all take a moment and enjoy that. But
every time I look at it, I'm like, how?
Exactly.
And they don't do anything. They just NFL lets it happen. They're like the one guy in the league where you're like so angry at because they somehow finesse everyone into making poor decisions. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, Bobby Koch, formerly of DLF, and used to do a pod with Matt, and he comes out for our DAP draft show once a year now, and he just couldn't get over he's giving me FU Rockies because of Howie, so that was fun. But the one piece of news that besides the draft picks was Eagles related, which was DeAndre Swift got traded during the draft to the Eagles, which. The trade itself, not a surprise after they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs very highly in the draft. So rather than give my biased Eagles opinion, I figured I'd throw it to Mike for his biased Eagles opinion.
I love it. I think it's a 2025 pick that they traded him for. And if they don't re-sign him, they get that pick back. So he's basically free for a year. I love the pick. This is bad news for Kenneth Gainwell. Boston Scott probably won't make the team. Boston Scott is the highest paid running back on the Eagles, by the way, making over $2 million a year. I do have one question. Scott, are you doing your show from like a U-Haul storage facility, or what do you got going on there?
This is the bunker. Yeah, man. This is the bunker.
All right. There you go. Just curious where you're
See, I'm happy somebody brought it up.
I got a candle back here. I got it's dark, it's intimate. I just hanging out with you guys, and Scott's over there like World War III's coming. Putin almost got droned. I'm down in the bunker. Let's mock.
He takes his mocks very seriously. He has to get in the bunker and prepare. But what do you? Anybody else? Matt, what do you think? Is this a lateral move for Swift? Upgrade? Downgrade somehow?
I think it's an upgrade just because they didn't want to use him in Detroit, right? They clearly didn't offer what they wanted, whether it was attitude, whether it was injury concerns, whatever it was. They clearly were not using him to the full extent of his abilities. And, it's negatively speaking, I do think it's probably a downgrade from his passing game work, which is obviously his strength. But he's got okay size. It's not like he's 199 pounds like Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So it's just going to be, it's just which one of these two backs are going to stay healthy between he and Rashad Penny. Are either of them going to stay healthy? So, the way I'm playing this is I kind of want to go grab. You said maybe Boston Scott gets cut. Maybe Kenny Gainwell doesn't get as much work. I kind of want to get these two guys for super cheap and, play the other side of it. And historically, these two backs haven't stayed healthy. So give me the cheap guys.
I was just going to say, for when Penny and Swift inevitably get here, I joked after they made the trade, they just have to coordinate the injuries. When Penny's hurt, Swift stays healthy, and when Swift gets hurt, Penny stays healthy. And any other thoughts, Jagger, Jeff, anything?
I'm worried about. Go ahead.
I guess I should have only thrown it to one of you.
Yeah, I can't quit. That's the only thing now. I want to get out, and
that's me.
Then and I'm back, baby. That's the only thing I got.
I mean, you have to be. You can't sell right now, right? Everybody's going to be.
I mean, I
down
would
on
sell
him
right
on
now.
this, so.
I don't know. Like that landing spot, I think people are full go on it. Like, what are you going to get a better time to sell him than?
I mean, if the price is a second, like,
well, what people are willing to give probably is a major question, but I think everybody seems to be very in on him going to the Eagles, which I understand. I mean, a high upside offense, but as long as they're allowed to just push Jalen Hurts in the end zone from 8 yards out and they don't really throw to the running backs, I'm a little bit concerned about what the real ceiling of Swift in the offense is.
So
honestly, I think, sorry to interrupt you, Rocky. I think this kind of signifies a shift in the Eagles' offensive philosophy. They just signed Jalen Hurts to a massive contract. This offseason has to be, you can't run so much. Use your legs as a threat, but not always as a weapon, kind of as a last resort. You have to throw to your backs more. He had the highest contract in NFL history until Lamar Jackson signed his a couple days later. Got to throw the backs more. You just have to. You know what I mean? The last guy got hurt because he played hero ball. Don't need you doing that. Check it down. We have plenty of good pass catching backs here.
I have had that same thought, and I very much hope that for all my Swift shares, because like Jagger said, I've been in for a while and I hadn't sold, and maybe I should be selling now, but I like Jagger said, I can't quit him. So, but I was going to finish up by saying, Jeff, what would you be like? Are you selling for a 24 first then?
Yeah, if I can grab a 24 first, I'm going to do it because at this point in the game, you never know where that first is going to end up. And I think that's a good exit point on him if you're willing to move off. If you're a contender right now, I understand holding him, but it's one of those that I don't think you're going to get more than a first. And so to grab any first that could end up being, a Caleb Williams lottery ticket, a Marvin Harrison Jr. lottery ticket coming up next year, I want to get in on that.
And that made one other question pop into my head, actually, which is, and you can answer this too. Maybe we can go around real quick. At what point in this draft would you what first would you sell him for? Would you sell him for 112? Would you want higher?
I'd probably be 109 for me because, I would probably still take Charbonnet and definitely Devin O'Shane right now, just so I could have that youth and buy back some years if I'm a contender. But I think Jeff has the reasonable take. Like if you're not contending, why do you have running backs like that? I don't know why you'd have them anyway, and you should try to get at least a 24 first. But as we saw with running back depth and the lack of receiving talent, it's a cliff at about 111 for me. So.
What about, we'll go around real quick. Matt, what's the lowest first you'd sell him for?
In this year's class?
Yes.
Man, 110 ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah. I think me personally,
but even then I wouldn't be happy about it. So.
Yeah. I think I might want 109 or 108, but I'm higher on Swift than most too. So Mike, what do you think?
Well, if we look at DLF's trade analyzer tool, in a Superflex league, DeAndre Swift roughly equates to the 111. His value is 200.2, and the 111 is 207.3. So you're looking at a back end of a first round pick, which, to be honest with you, I feel is pretty fair. If it's tight end premium, you could probably still get a good tight end there. I don't have tight end premium clicked. Didn't think to do that before I started talking. But yeah, that's pretty fair. I mean, I'm honestly not paying that for him, to be honest with you. Back with injury concerns, going into a committee backfield, I'm just going to use that draft pick somewhere else.
I do have the recent trades pulled up from the trade finder. Brandon Ayuk for Swift is the most recent. There is a 105 for DeAndre Swift that happened yesterday.
Eagles
there
fan.
Is actually there's two.
Could potentially be
oh
Gibbs for Swift right there.
105 twice, yeah, 105 twice for him. So I mean, I guess you can. I thought for sure you weren't getting a first for him.
I definitely think you were getting 105. I'd be selling Swift for 105.
Oh, easily, 100%,
for sure.
If not just to buy back years.
Is that Superflex or not?
Which one?
That is a good question. I was assuming Superflex.
One of them, actually, I take it back. Both of them are single quarterback.
Okay, that's a little. That makes a little more sense.
Okay. It makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Scott? We haven't heard from you on the whole Swift thing.
I guess 109 blind, but maybe 10 or 11, depending on who's, if we're on the clock. But 9's my pivot point. It has been before the draft, and it still is. So I'm good with that.
I'm kind of with you there, and I'll finish up with Jeff. You said you do it for the 24 first. Would you do any first, or would you go a little higher than 112 to have to sell?
I mean, I'm a homer here. I like Dalton Kincaid at 110, so it would be the 111 probably.
He hasn't made it that far in any of my drafts.
That's fair. That's actually an excellent point. And then like I don't know, like I normally tell people not to draft for need. You know, you draft for value, you trade for need, whatever. But it gets to the point in this draft where everything's kind of clumped together in tiers right now until we get that off-season gossip and BS during training camp. So I feel like once you get to like after the 109, it's okay to officially start drafting for need. Like if you like need Dalton Kincaid at that point, I would, especially if you're tight end premium, I feel like that is a good pivot point for me. I don't know, call me crazy.
I mean, Kincaid went like 2 or 3 picks after these wide receivers that were all clumped together, and he landed with Josh Allen in Buffalo. And so I understand they didn't traditionally use the tight end, but I expect that they're going to use him in a different role than traditionally what they had in that offense. I think they're going to be heavier 12 formation. But you mentioned it, Jagger. You made a good point that 111 is just a cliff. And so I had the 111 earlier today. I was just praying that somebody would take a Shane or do something silly there, and they did not. And then when that hits you hard, like when you see like all the first round players off the board and you're just sitting there with the 111, I was able to get out of it. I got a little bit lucky. I was able to flip it into a 24 first. I included Juju Smith-Schuster and DJ Chark to get it done just because I just didn't want to pick there. And so I just wanted to get out and roll it forward, but I was able to get out. But yeah, if you weren't able to move up before now, yeah, you're praying somebody loves a Shane or somebody's going to do something silly.
Okay, so I think that's a good amount of talk on Swift there, and we are going to be getting into a rookie mock draft. It will be Superflex. I went 1.75 tight end premium as a setting, trade addict settings, so we could boost these tight ends a little bit. And the draft order will be Scott, then Matt, then Jeff, then me, then Mike, then Jagger. We'll each make 2 picks per round. We're going to try and get through 2 here. Maybe I guess we can do this first. Matt has been trying to make a trade with me since it involves rookie picks. It's relevant. Where he wants my 105 in a league where I'm decent, but not super title contender here. Although I do have, you'll be shocked to hear this, Scott. I have Hurts and Herbert on that team. It's also an orphan I took over.
Oh, that explains it.
But he wants my 105. He offered me the 110 and the 201, which I don't want. I counted with the 110 and a 24 first. And then he did have another counter. But I first want to get your take. I'll start with you, Scott. What your take is on either of those trades. Would you do, if you're me with the 105, are you doing 110 and 201?
I'm on the clock right now at the 105, and I just offered basically.
This draft hasn't started, by the way.
Okay, so I offered essentially. What did you say it was? The 110 and the 201.
Yes,
that was the first offer.
Okay, yeah, I offered that to the 110. It's the 110 and the 202 is what I offered this guy. So I'm just trying to get back. So
you're looking to move back.
Yeah.
See, I don't want to move back.
See, man, he's offering this. I'm offering you a better deal than Scott is trying to move back for right now.
Sorry, Rocky.
But I have upgraded. Oh, you want to talk about the other offer first? But I have upgraded that offer.
He has. It's what is it now? It's 110,
the 201, and 2 2024 seconds.
Yeah, I do that.
So Jeff, what do you think?
You don't need a quarterback, do you? I don't know. God, I love that.
I don't. I have Hurts and Herbert.
I don't think a quarterback's falling there to 5.
It's not.
Oh, you mean Matt? Or you mean me or Matt?
Well,
I have the 105. I hold the 105. Yeah, so I don't need a quarterback now.
Yeah, I mean, so you're trading away Gibbs or Jackson Smith-Njigba for what, Dalton Kincaid or maybe Zay Flowers and some seconds. So that 201 is a nice pick because you're looking at probably maybe Charbonnet, maybe Will Levis there, and then you grab a couple seconds on top, depending on where you're sitting. Probably in your competitive cycle. If you're looking for that one piece, I'd probably rather insert Gibbs into that lineup than those other pieces. But if you're looking kind of not as like I'm trying to win right now and trying to extend that, then grabbing the other pieces I think is fine.
You guys have kind of changed my mind, because when I first read this, like I think that Rocky should have just stayed put at the 105, because I don't know, like I think these are in my soft leagues, my softball leagues now. I've seen CJ Stroud consistently fall to the 105, but if you guys, it's insane. It's insanity. I don't know, but it's happened consistently now. I'm just saying, but if you know your league and it's not going to be there, then I would definitely make this trade.
Yeah, I was
like,
I was in a 16-team league the other night, and I had the 106, and Stroud and Gibbs were both available at the 105. The one at the 105 had Hurts, Dak, and another decent quarterback, and I was just like, he made me an offer, and I was like, I know you don't want to make this, you don't want to take, you feel like you need to take Stroud here, but you don't want to do it. So I gave him like a late second, and he tossed back a third, and I moved up to 5, and I grabbed Stroud in the 16 team, and so I was pretty shocked at that.
Yeah, that's basically kind of same scenario. Is like I was looking at this guy's team, saw he had a bunch of quarterbacks, and like again, it's a softball league, so they let a fox in the hen house, and call me, fantastic, because I'm Mr. Fox, and I went up and traded and got CJ Stroud at the 105. So
It's a great movie.
I feel pretty confident CJ Stroud will not be. This is a bunch of DLF guys. I'm pretty sure it's going to go Bijan quarterback.
You get one guy that gets Gibbs or JSN. You never know. Like Gibbs is. I've seen competitive leagues take Gibbs at even the 103.
Yeah. I know some guys who are big Gibbs, like they're convinced that he's CMC, and I'm not there. JSN would be an argument for me, because we see how much value these wide receivers hold. And then if they do actually live up to the value, how much actual production they add to your team. So if you're willing to wait on JSN to be the guy that we all think he probably is, then I think you can hold. But that comes to the question of what your wide receivers are. But hear me out. Like let's play 4D chess a little bit. Let's say you take Matt's trade. You could possibly in season turn those 2 seconds into a first, and then you're rolling the dice right there.
You got the offer, Rocky. You got the offer in your inbox.
Matt's
Rocky.
side.
Click that button.
I don't want to count Matt's legs out. I mean, I want gentlemen to make an agreement here.
We're going to get into this once we start this mock, but I do not like that part of the draft. I'm not as in on taking Kincaid at 110 as most people are.
You can trade it.
I could. And I don't like. I'm not a big Flowers guy. I just don't like that part of the draft.
Both of those picks, the 110 and the 201, are in a range where there's 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. I think you could argue all the way down to 204, 205. Mm-hmm. Somebody is going to have a player that they want with those 2 picks at that range. I'm just saying, you can make one pick and trade the other one and move one pick forward. I don't know. I think you got a lot of options. That's 4 picks to work with. So if you're willing to keep cascading trade on down the road, I think you could make something happen.
Mike, are you with these guys? You killing me here too and making me trade this 105 to Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I use DLF a lot to prep for my podcast, so I'm definitely on Matt's side. The way I see it is this: assuming that if Matt has the 110, you're probably a competitive team, right? Pushing for the championship here.
No,
you're not.
No. I earned the 101 last year, and I traded it to Russ for Chris Olave, 24 second, 25 first.
Okay, so you just want to come back up here.
So I want to come back up and grab
and get the better player.
I want to grab one blue chip.
All right,
I am not going to be competing with you this year. My quarterbacks are Trey Lance and Justin Fields. That's it. Oh, Baker Mayfield. If you're scared of that,
I have the quarterbacks there. So I'm missing some other pieces though.
I do agree with Matt though that this is a good trade for Rocky to make. If you move back, you're just going to basically diversify your draft picks here.
Yep.
There's going to be really good value at the front end of the second round this year. Michael Mayer should be there. Marvin Mims will be there. There's going to be good prospects, and I'm at the point now where I stopped trying to glorify these first round picks. If the team's an orphan, it's probably an orphan for a reason. So I would just try to get as much draft capital as possible. And if you don't like the draft picks, try to get a player instead. Try to get a player that you think is going to help you contribute, or trade out for the 2024 draft. Say, hey, Matt, let me beat you up for some 24 first here, buddy.
I tried to get a 24 first from Matt. He won't do it.
I countered with 3 seconds instead of 3 seconds, including the 201.
Yeah.
Instead of the single first next year.
God, I wish that would happen right now. I'm going nuts on the clock at 105.
I
here.
can't
don't
even
wanna
get
pick.
Juju Smith-Schuster for the 208 in the league right now. And Rocky's complaining about getting 3 second-round picks thrown at him. Make the trade, Rocky. Come
Seriously,
on, man.
Click the button. It's in your inbox right now, live on the air.
Seriously.
Do it.
You know what? Do it for the people. You're on a
Do it.
podcast called
Do
Trade
it.
Addicts, and you're not pulling the trigger on a trade. Do it for the people, Rocky.
Somebody put it
Dynasty
in one of
Junkies.
the trade analyzers so we can
Well, he's
add
the
some
other
more
one who
data to
does,
this.
Jeff.
Oh, like you want me to pop it into KTC because it's.
Let's see.
If I put it in KTC, it's gonna say that you should take the trade. I know it right now. Because
I don't even use KTC, so I have no idea. But
yeah. Anyway.
But fine, Matt. You had 4 other smart people tell me this. I'm still not sure I like it.
I'm going to tell you right now, Rocky, the only reason why I am offering this is because I have 6 seconds next year. Otherwise,
you also have
get another second, Rocky. He's splashing the pot with seconds. Go grab another one.
Well, now a smart guy's telling me to get another second, Matt.
I would not make this deal if I didn't have a lot of seconds next year. If it was my only 2 seconds, I wouldn't do it.
You also have 3 firsts next year, Matt. You could give me one of those.
Yeah, and my team is garbage, Rocky. Absolute garbage. So, anyway.
Okay, I'm doing it for the content, for the pod.
Right.
I'm accepting the trade.
Yeah.
It is accepted.
Thank you, guys. I apprate the assistance, the brokerage.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
I'll have
making
my
me
people
trade away
send the
JS
finder's
now.
feed over to you guys.
Let's all around. Let's go.
Okay, but we're 20 minutes in now, so let's finally get into this mock here. So like I said, Scott is on the board at 101, and according to the show sheet, he's apparently taking Dalton Kincaid.
No, let's just keep the boring pick here. With
Is that really happening, or was Scott just messing with us? I just wanted to.
I
wasn't sure.
I'm just messing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Everybody seems kind of excited about the landing spot with Atlanta. I mean, I'm just more excited about the draft capital itself. I mean, Atlanta's line's pretty good actually. So I don't know. That's fine. It's good. It's like, I guess it's just the easy, straightforward, like, here it is. I don't have a ton of 101s this year. I have a lot of 102s. So I actually traded with Russ to go up and get a 101 in Trade Addicts 5 just to get another second share of Bijan. But otherwise, if I had a lot of 101s, I'd probably be trading back and try to get these quarterbacks personally. But that's just more my philosophy. But if we're just here and we're just in one draft, I'm just going to take the best player and move along.
Okay, and I don't think there's that much to talk about with Bijan, except I did have one question, which is anybody, given its Superflex, is any of you for not taking Bijan at 101?
I might take him. I might not take Bijan at 101 and Trade Addicts 8.
Because your team's not good?
Oh, wait, I take it back. I made a trade for the 102 today, so I will take him at 101. But
yeah.
if I didn't just make that deal with Kane today, I would have taken Richardson at 101.
Because it's in rebuild, or
my only quarterback, literally
okay.
The only quarterback on that team is Trey Lance.
Okay.
This is a team that the first 2 years of the league took second, and then I completely tore it down to the studs last year.
That makes sense.
So everyone else would be taking Bijan over the quarterbacks.
Yeah, almost in most of, if I earn the 101, I'm trying to trade to the 102.
Right.
Even if I get
It's
almost
so hard.
every
it
time.
is. It is.
It's impossible. Like, I tried to do that with Kane. I was like, "Can I give you anything to move up?" And he's like, "I don't want to move up at all." So I had to come up and pay. I had paid 104. I think I paid 104 and 2. I think it was similar to Rocky. I paid 104 and 2 seconds to move to 102 because he wouldn't move up to 101.
Would it be crazy if you had just said, like, "Hey, will you give me an extra second?" Everyone would think you're crazy. But let's say Anthony Richardson pans out. That's genius at that point.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's risky. I had the league where I had the 103, and so my quarterbacks in that league, I had Josh Allen and Dak, and it's a 14 team. I had Jordan Love too, so I wasn't feeling hurting too bad at quarterback 3, and so I gave up. I believe it was 3 seconds to go from the 103 to the 101 to get Bijan because having locked down at the 2 quarterback positions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it just seems like everybody just doesn't feel like they're ever getting enough for that 101 too. Like even if someone is willing to try and trade up and give you a decent offer, it's still almost never what you feel like you should be getting, given the way everybody talks about Bijan and the 101 and the haul you should get. So we're now to the 102. Matt, it's you.
Yeah, this is easily Anthony Richardson for me, and I think people have made the argument that it's him in one quarter, not at 102 necessarily, but he's the quarterback 1 in 1 quarterback leagues because of the risk and the upside. And in Superflex, you should take one of the safer guys. But for me, I think that Anthony Richardson is safe. I think that rushing ability is the floor, and once the passing ability comes through, that's the ceiling that we're going to get if it comes. Just some fun stats that I'm sure everybody knows at this point, but only 9.2% sack percentage on pressured dropbacks. Compared that to 26.8% for Will Levis, 14.1 for Stroud, and 12.5 for Young. I just think he does things that veteran savvy quarterbacks do. You know, he looks off defenders. Yes, he's bad in the shortened area in the middle of the field, but he does things that you don't coach. He's only played the position full time for 1 season. You see him manipulate defenders at the second level. And look, do we think he can be Justin Fields? Because last year, Justin Fields only 60.4% passing. And I will say Richardson will probably be less than that his first year, but only 149.5 passing yards a game, only 17 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He missed 2 games and he still finished as the quarterback 6 overall, 5th in points per game. So I think the floor with the rushing is a quarterback 1 from the jump if he starts right away, despite all of the concerns with accuracy. So once that passing does come along, if it does, that's when we hit the ceiling.
And I know a lot of people have Anthony Richardson as the QB1. One of my things with him, to me, there's obvious passing issues. I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
No.
I don't see it, and maybe I'm not watching. Like I'll admit, I haven't watched as many games on all these guys as I have in past years. But when I watch him, I don't see. He's obviously, from the combine, crazy athletic, and he does run the ball a lot. But I don't see like a Lamar Fields, Jalen Hurts level runner. I don't know if I'm just watching the wrong games. Am I off on that?
You are.
Yes.
Okay, I just must be watching the wrong games. I also don't like too. He loves to run into guys, which I do not love. Either.
He's 3 pounds lighter than Derrick Henry and 1 inch taller than Derrick Henry.
I get it, but I still don't love my quarterback. Always, like it seems like every time he just tries to bowl over guys. Like the good thing about Lamar and Jalen Hurts is they are very careful and run out of bounds, slide, all that stuff. I'm not seeing a lot of that from him, but.
Yeah, like to be honest, I've been a huge Anthony Richardson guy for a while now, and the only reason why I kept him at my QB3 was because I've tried to incorporate analytics a little bit to balance out a lot of like the film analysis. But to me, it's a very fixable trait. Like he doesn't set his feet very well. He tries to play hero ball and use his arm, and that to me, like in comparison to like someone like Levis, I think that's like literally. I think Matt nailed it. Like he just needs reps and decent coaching and some talent around him, and I think the kid is going to be amazing. So,
and he had awful wide receivers at Florida.
Yes.
I mean, so many drops. If you watch 3, 4, 5 games from last season, you will see multiple drops per game. So yes, the accuracy is not great in the short and intermediate areas of the field, but his wide receivers did not help him out. His percentage would look a lot better if they caught the ball.
He new coach too in his first year starting, and before they had terrible coaching. Dan Mullen was a terrible coach, so just a really difficult environment for him to really succeed in Florida. So, and I moved him up to my quarterback 1 once I felt comfortable that we weren't going to be the rug pulled out from underneath us on I feel like you can't mention Malik Willis's name without,
they're so
that
different.
idea of like, they're so different. Yeah. Exactly. But, it was always in your mind of like the rug was pulled out so hard last year. And once I got the last couple of weeks where it was like clear where this isn't happening, that's when I moved him up to number 1.
And he landed in the perfect spot. Like you can't ask for a better spot.
Yeah, and
Yep.
yeah, Steichen has worked with Jalen Hurts. He also was there for I
Her-
believe Justin Herbert's rookie
Herbert,
year.
yep.
So he's got the best scenario coaching wise. I will admit that as well. So, but Jeff, which I assume quarterback are you taking at the 103?
So the way I'm playing this year is if I'm have a handful of picks in this area, I'm just really trying to diversify to make sure I walk out with as equal shares as possible between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And I took Bryce Young earlier today in a draft at the 103, so I'm going to take CJ Stroud because I'm trying to do one in, one out, and just either way, I think that they both. I have questions about what their ultimate ceiling are. In a vacuum, I probably move Stroud above Young just because I have enough durability concerns on Bryce Young. We saw some of those issues pop up in college. I do think that there's some underlying athleticism on CJ Stroud that wasn't displayed. I think that part of Ohio State's offense held him out of that. I think there was certainly elements he mentioned that, he wanted to get the ball to his teammates, and I think that was part of it. They gave him the ability to hold on to the ball when you're playing against Northwestern, Iowa, whoever it might be. You can do that and allow a little bit more creativity downfield and take those chunk yardage versus taking off and run. And I do think that athleticism is there. We've seen it in the past. He had a 65-yard touchdown run against Michigan State where he outran everybody. And even the Georgia game, we saw some of that athleticism as well. And so I think that can develop there. But ultimately, it's just the way that I'm playing the game this year between him and Bryce Young and just trying to make sure I'm diversified one way or the other. I was pretty disappointed that they traded next year's first because knowing that Carolina didn't have next year's first, that was kind of a tiebreaker in my mind where they could have ended up with Marvin Harrison Jr. and you give Stroud the quarterback one, the wide receiver one for him, whereas I knew Bryce wouldn't be getting that piece. But now that they're both kind of in similar grounds there where they're not exactly getting that piece unless Tank Dell and Jonathan Mingo are those guys. But
Yeah, and I'm at the 104, and I actually kind of love this spot because I do have Richardson at 3 for me. I think I get that he has the highest ceiling. I also think he has the lowest for the 3, and with this pick, I really like both Stroud and Young. I have Stroud slightly ahead, but I'm fine to take whichever of the 3 quarterbacks is left, which is basically the scenario you're getting at 104. And so I'm taking Bryce Young. Like him a lot. Basically the only concern there is the size, I think, for me. I mean, he's got everything else. He's an accurate passer. He's got a good deep ball. He's obviously mobile. So it's just, is the size going to matter in the NFL? And we've seen plenty of small quarterbacks do well. So I'm fine with Bryce Young. It's the only reason that like Stroud and Young are super close for me. It's the size is basically why I put CJ Stroud slightly ahead. But I'm happy to get whichever quarterback falls if I'm at the 104. I think it's the perfect spot. So I'm taking Bryce Young here. Any comments by anybody on Bryce Young before we move on?
That's great value. It's excellent value. Can I help you?
Speaking of great value, someone did mention in the chat earlier in another league I'm in. I guess they must be in that league too. I got Young at the 106, and I was jumping for joy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really
great. His best to have his poker face right now. He's
yeah. It was a wild. Like I think both JSN and Gibbs went in the top 5, and that's how I ended up getting him. And I actually traded up from 8 to 6 to get him. So
there are some big names touting that. I think Gretsch and Siegel's Pod Stealing Bananas. I think they mentioned that they would rather have both JSN and Gibbs over. I can't remember if it was any of the quarterbacks, but at least some of the quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that line of thought is out there for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like to that, I push back on that. Join any startup right now and if you don't grab 2 of the elite quarterbacks, like you're looking at Daniel Jones in round 4 and you're wondering like, is this a decision that I'm ready to make? And that's my pushback on that. I understand in a vacuum if you're like looking at the class, just stacking it up and kind of betting on these quarterbacks not being high upside guys. But I think the dynasty quarterback landscape is such that to grab those young quarterbacks, it's an impossible decision for me to take a running back or a wide receiver that went 20th in the draft over one of these young quarterbacks that could be first round dynasty picks next year in every startup.
100%
agreed.
So, Mike, that brings us to you at the 105.
Yeah, so I'll go. I'll stay chalk here. I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs from the Detroit Lions. Sorry, I love the landing spot. It gets us DeAndre Swift, and I think it's a good spot for him too. I saw a report today that they're going to use him in the slot more than they did at Alabama, which fantastic. I love it. He's a great receiving back, and I think getting him in space is a smart thing. I love what the Detroit Lions are doing overall, building the roster. I'm not a Lions fan, but I kind of cheer for them a little bit because they've been down for so long that it's nice to see them be successful. I do think they actually have a chance to win the NFC North next year because, Kirk Cousins might have to play a meaningful game on primetime. And we all know what happens when he does that, right? But who cares about that? Kirk Cousins gets us fantasy points. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a locked-in guy. If I have him anywhere, I'm starting him week 1. Just going to roll him out there. I'm going to see what happens. I also think David Montgomery is going to be really good in that offense too. A little bit of thunder and lightning there, kind of like what they did or what they're still doing in New Orleans with the running backs. So Jahmyr Gibbs for me at the 105. Sign me up.
And that brings us to 106. I did want to ask, I guess I'll throw this out to everyone real quick. I'll start with Jeff. JSN or Gibbs, if you're at 5, in that 5-6 area, which one you want more?
I've been steadfast that I had JSN above Gibbs, but the draft pushed me over the edge because you got a running back that's going 12th in the draft, whereas you saw Jackson Smith and Jigba drop into 20, landing in a landing spot that long term, I think that's fine. Assuming Geno Smith is either the quarterback or they solve quarterback, but for the majority of his career, he's going to be 1A, 1B with DK Metcalf, which works great for Tyler Lockett. And so they funnel enough targets there, but just Gibbs landing that 12th pick. And I think an offense that really wants to show off how smart they are in taking him. I think that a little bit safer play there, I think, versus Jackson Smith and Jigba, concerns on his ability to win outside, concerns on Seattle not traditionally featuring 3 wide receivers. And so those types of things, I think, swayed Gibbs above in my mind.
Are you there too, Matt, or would you rather have the wide receiver?
I think I would flip a coin, to be honest with you. If I had the 105 in this, I guess I do have the 105 now. I'll probably take JSN because of the state of my team. But I mean, it's tough to argue with 12th overall capital for a running back. I mean, everyone that goes there basically does well, right? With that kind of capital. We're talking Christian McCaffrey capital. I think he was 8th overall in 2017. So not quite a top 10 pick, but he's right there in terms of that. So I think you can't go wrong with either one. I would take the wide receiver just because I want wide receivers. And I think that, God, what's his name? The new offensive coordinator that came over for the Rams. Anyway, he's used to running 3 wide receiver sets. I think there could be a change in philosophy there. Maybe they are running more 3 wide receiver sets, and JSN's going to be on the field enough to make it happen this year. But it's certainly a risk for year 1.
And Jagger, you don't get the choice in this mock draft, but if you had, and maybe you'll shock us and you won't even take JSN at 6, but which one would you take at 5?
It's JSN to me. Like the 105, 106 range is best available, and it's easy to say in a vacuum right now where I don't have a team to manage. But since I am in that vacuum and I can't have that objectivity, I try to stick with my process, and it's positional values for me. Like if you have 3 different positions in the same bucket or tier, it's quarterback, wide receiver, running back for me. And a lot of that is just, I know that a wide receiver is probably going to last a lot longer than what a running back is. However, there is a caveat that I don't know if anyone else got the report today, that this is from a coach, that they plan on using Jahmyr Gibbs in the slot. This is something that gets thrown around a lot, but Gibbs is a real player now that I think they kind of have to use him in the slot. You know, they got the team now. Who is the wide receiver 3 for Detroit?
Well, I just think he lets them stretch the defenses horizontally now. You got Jameson once he comes back to stretch the defenses vertically. He had 33 slot routes. Let's start like 33 routes, receptions. I just saw this a second ago. Anyway, I think 33 slot routes last season and 44 on the outside. So if they don't use him as a wide receiver with the capital they spent on him, I think that's pretty egregious.
Okay, so that brings us back to Scott at the 107.
Yeah, you guys are just making it easy for me. I'm gonna smash Dalton Kincaid here. I am seeing this in my actual drafts quite often. So I'm surprised to hear Jeff say I love to get him at 111 because he fell to 110 yesterday and I traded half my roster to move up from 112 just to get him there. So I mean that's as far as I've seen him fall so far in my dozen or so I've got going. I'll just take him there in the premium. If it's not a premium, I'm cool waiting until late first. But here, I just think he can be a difference maker and give you that positional advantage. We typically see those guys, obviously talented guys, less blocking, meaning more slot work, and with a great quarterback. And he's got all those plus draft capital. So, I mean, I think he's got everything you could be looking for, whether you're film or data. I mean, he fits every which way. So I'm just going to plug him in there and I will rock with him in tight end premium leagues, pretty much ahead of almost all these receivers personally.
So are you, excuse me, are you worried at all about, because we heard this narrative a couple of years ago, I did anyway, with Kyle Pitts that, oh, he's not going to produce year one and you can get him cheaper after the year. Are you worried drafting him at 107, Dalton Kincaid? That I agreed with that on. I see Matt shaking his head. I agreed with that on Pitts, but that wasn't necessarily going to be the case. It has dropped from he was 3 first immediately after the draft, but he's still worth quite a bit. But anyway, but Scott, in terms of drafting a tight end, that's my only kind of reservation. There is when he goes for 50 catches for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Are you going to be able to get him cheaper than a 107 next year?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm not spending a 103 though.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
if I have a 107, 108, 109, I mean, in most cases that means I was a playoff team. I mean, I think in all cases, mostly, in mostly all cases. So yeah, I would just say that's. Unless I have Kelsey, or maybe even if I have Kelsey, I don't know. But pretty much, I just want that guy that can have that advantage. I don't know that any of these receivers are difference makers.
That plays into it too. I think.
So I don't know. It's not that I don't like them. I like them all. I don't know what to do with them necessarily. I don't think you plug them in day one and are like, oh yeah, this guy just absolutely put me over the top, and I'm winning championships now because I have Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison, but Kincaid, I mean, if everything works right, he can definitely give you that advantage.
Yeah, I mean, if he ends up long term as the Bills' #1 receiving option after Diggs ages out, I mean, you just got Travis Kelce for the next 10 years. And I think Quentin Johnston has the upside to be that #1 wide receiver for Justin Herbert for the majority of his career, given the ages of the Chargers wide receivers right now. But Jordan Addison, you're buying into he's going to be the second wide receiver for the Vikings forever, behind Justin Jefferson with whatever they end up at the quarterback position.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So, Matt, we're back to you at the 108.
Yeah, I don't want to dump too hard on Dalton Kincaid, but I do feel like I got a little bit of a gift here with Addison. I just really like the player a lot. I know the size concerns, all that stuff, but he landed in just the perfect location, and it's going to be a high volume pass offense. This guy is just a master of the double move. He disguises his routes so well. It's like he has a turbo button after the catch. I love the fluidity of his footwork, the way he disguises the direction of his cuts at the top of the stem. He's just such a fun player, and I think that he landed in one of the best possible spots for him. Kirk Cousins, I think, is going to be fine for him for this year, and whatever happens the year after that, we'll figure it out. But anyway, either way, he's never going to face #1 competition off the defense unless for some reason Jefferson misses time. So I just love the spot. Maybe you're not getting a wide receiver 1 for fantasy and dynasty out of this pick, but I think you're getting a absolutely solid wide receiver 2, 3 kind of player that you're going to be plugging in every week.
Addison isn't.
Go ahead, Jagger.
I was gonna say Addison. He's kind of moved up my rankings because in my analysis, I never thought that Jordan Addison would be like a wide receiver 1 for a team, but he would be an excellent wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
And what better situation could you be in than being Justin Jefferson's wide receiver 2? You're virtually rarely going to get double covered. You know, it's an excellent spot.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, when I was looking at Addison pre-draft, I never necessarily thought he was going to be a fantasy wide receiver 1. So I kind of agree. Like, I think most people think that he landed in a very nice spot, and he's not ever going to be their wide receiver 1. I think it's unlikely he's a fantasy wide receiver 1, but I think being across from Justin Jefferson can kind of make him that, like Matt was saying, that solid wide receiver 2. That I thought he probably would be anyway, but having the Jefferson pulling coverage, at least for the next at least next year, I guess we'll see beyond that. He's got a pretty solid quarterback, and I think he's of the receivers, he's probably the most likely to give you really good fantasy relevant production out of the gate. Yeah,
safe, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff, we're back to you at the 109.
For me, this is pretty easily Quentin Johnston. I've got Johnston above Addison in my ranks. Johnston went above Addison in the actual NFL draft, and I think you look at the landing spot, he's going to be taking a school with being Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in the same room there. I think are going to really help him out. And really, you look 2 years down the line, he could be the Chargers' easy number 1 target for Justin Herbert. With really, what's the landscape around him going to look like? And so that I think that just the bet on the upside that's there. I know there's some concerns on his polish. He's still pretty new to being wide receiver, so he wasn't one of these guys that's played the position since they're 7 years old type thing, where he's kind of developing in that role. And I think a lot of the analysis around him, I think, kind of pigeonholed him in one direction because of his body type, that he's not really that type of player. He's really explosive and creative after the catch, and he's got the ability and the physicality to win downfield, and he can do those things. And I know that his contested catch numbers were not fantastic, but he also had Max Duggan throwing him the ball in contested catch situations versus Caleb Williams for Jordan Addison. So, I mean, you're talking night and day differences there, but I do think that the upside is there in that scheme, and the attachment to Justin Herbert is enough to put him above Addison in my mind.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I wish you hadn't picked him because I'm up next at 110, and this is why I did not want the 110, Matt. Because for me, this is where things fall off. And I do like Quentin. I think I maybe with you, Jeff, that I think both of us may like Quentin Johnston more than a little higher than consensus here. I definitely love the ceiling there. I know some stuff has been made about his drops and things like that, but that can be cleaned up. So I definitely think there's high potential there, and there's not really another there's a lot of receivers we're probably going to be drafting during the rest of this draft. But to me, after those 3, it kind of, and I like I said, I'm not a Zay Flowers guy, so it kind of falls off. Even though he's a first round guy, and he would be my next receiver for the draft capital, if nothing else. I don't want to pick him here. So I was hoping you wouldn't take Quentin Johnston for some reason, but I was pretty sure you would. So this again, Matt gave me this damn pick that I can use.
Do you want me to make the pick for you, Rocky?
Can I just trade this for a bet? Can I do that?
Well, but I think this illustrates a good point that if you're in a league that's not super plugged in, and maybe you draft next week, maybe you're playing in a safe leagues and you draft next week and you're sitting at the 110, 111, do what you can to move up to the 109 or 108 and walk out happy of your draft.
Yes.
Great point.
Matt was smart. I took seconds. Anyway, to me, it's between the 2 running backs. I don't want to draft any of the tight ends this high. I know some people in this, but he may be the 111. It would take Levis here. Maybe I don't like taking players I believe are going to be bad. So I'm not going to take him simply because he's a quarterback. So it comes down to the 2 running backs, and this is probably not the ideal pick, but I'm just going to go with the talent, even though I absolutely despise the situation, and take Zach Charbonnet. I liked him so much pre-draft.
Yeah,
he was easily my RB3, and he was fairly close with Gibbs for me. Sorry, Matt, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna I was gonna give a little some positives for Charbonnet, but it didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, and so yeah, I mean it's fine. You can go ahead. I just I was just going to mention the whole Seattle Ken Walker thing obviously is a killer for his potential, but I'm just praying that in some way it works out, and I'm going to buy into the talent. I don't like to go, even though this situation does not look very good with another young running back that was just drafted last year. I don't like to waste situation too much, but. I admit this is not an ideal situation for a running back, but he did get the capital and he has the talent, so I'm going to take him.
I think it's obviously scary, right? It's a bad situation at the surface level and on paper and all that, but I mean, I think there's a chance that maybe they don't like the boom bust nature of Kenneth Walker's runs. I'm gonna butcher the stat because I can't remember. I'm doing off the top of my head, but he was one of the worst in the league in terms of runs that went for 2 yards or fewer. So he's going to have those 60-70 yard runs, sure, for the touchdowns. Those are very exciting, but on a per touch basis, he's not a very efficient back. And Charbonnet is that kind of grinder, that Seattle style, that Pete Carroll style, and he's versatile and catch the ball out of the backfield. So I don't think he's dead. I think the ceiling is certainly limited as long as Walker is there and healthy and all that. But Walker had injury concerns of his own last year, right? So I think there's lots of scenarios where we could have several games this season where Charbonnet outproduces Kenneth Walker. So it's scary for the long term, it's scary for the short term, but I don't think he's completely dead.
And that's been part of my thinking with it as well. I mean, they had Walker and they still use similar capital on another back. That must mean something. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we're just taking it as a given because, Kenneth Walker was like the RB4 in Dynasty or whatever he was, that he's just going to be the lead back no matter what. And Charbonnet is basically, some people are acting like he's basically a backup. And I don't think it's out of the question he could get more carries than Walker.
I think it hurts more. I think it hurts Walker more than it does Charbonnet, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And the good point there is that, like, I think we're not really counting how much better a receiver Charbonnet is. So when you think about fantasy upside and what gives us actual points, I would rather have Charbonnet over Kenneth Walker. I just think he's a better talent. He's a much smoother runner. He's an adequate enough pass blocker, and like Matt said, he's a grinder, and him in the passing game is what we need to chase. So I like this pick here. I'm a little upset, and I thought he would fall to me right here. So now at least I got one more pick to gather my crap together and figure it out. So go you.
As Jagger said, he does have one more pick because Mike is now up at the 111.
So if I was actually on the clock with this pick, I'd probably look to trade this pick for a player in the NFL getting me points right now. Being that it's tight end premium, I might look to move this and another piece for like Pat Freiermuth or maybe Greg Dulcich, something like that. But that's not what we're going to do. So it is a 1.75 tight end premium. I'm actually going to take Michael Mayer here. And just to touch on the Zach Charbonnet situation, I tell people all the time on my show, the NFL doesn't really care about your fantasy team. They're drafting to make their team better, and you have to adjust. So everybody was upset when Charbonnet went to the Seahawks. And I'm like, the NFL does this to us every year. You have to adjust. You have to. But if you look at our lab's depth chart, because I don't think official NFL depth charts come out till like August, he has to get past Austin Hooper. He's Michael Mayer is currently the second tight end, and his competition behind him is O.J. Howard, Jesper Horsted, Cole Fotheringham, and John Samuel Schenker. So I have a really good inkling.
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
I think Michael Mayer can definitely get past these guys in that offense with Jimmy Garoppolo. And if you look at their wide receiver room, it's not anything great. Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, we like those guys. And of course, Devontae Adams. But other than that, there's really not a lot there. He could be a very productive player from day one. And you know what? When you're at the 111, you're looking at a guy that you can get on your roster, hopefully develop a little bit here. And I think he's that guy. There's a lot of tight ends I like in this class. Admittedly, on my show, I talk about tight ends too much. But guess what? The NFL proved me right again. They matter. Because I think more tight ends were drafted this year than running backs. I think it was 16 to 14.
18 running backs.
Was it 18? Well, then whoever told me that was wrong. Sorry, I lied to you on Dynasty Junkies, but I'm going Michael Mayer from Las Vegas.
Okay, so Jagger, have you collected yourself here? You know who you're picking?
Yeah, man, you guys made it super easy. It's Zay Flowers for me, and I'm excited. I'm been a huge Zay Flowers truther. Really excited to get for him to get the draft capital to validate the hype that I've been giving him. I think he's a all around wide receiver. He can play inside or outside. His best ability is after the catch, and he provides something different that Baltimore hasn't had. And I'm not super worried about the wide receiver room. We don't know if Odell Beckham Jr. is even going to play a full season, let alone play to the level that we know that he can be. And then Rashad Bateman is to me the odd man out on here because he's the only one who can't really play in the slot, you know. And Zay Flowers is someone who can be on the field at all times because of that alone. I think, you know, and I think Mark Andrews is gonna. I don't think he's gonna be the tight end that we all thought he was going forward, because I know everyone's freaking out, but Todd Monken is now the offensive coordinator. I think we got to move past the fear of Greg Roman. And then, like, we kind of hit on this earlier in the show, once you pay a quarterback, you kind of don't want them to get hit anymore. And all these offseason moves kind of validate that for me. So I think the volume's there. I heard someone say in a podcast that, you know, now that the wide receiver room's a little bit more crowded and there might be a smaller piece of the pie, but overall, I think we should project a bigger pie. So I love the pick. I like the upside. He might be best in best ball right now, but definitely in the future, I think he's a guy that can project as a wide receiver one.
I think Rashad Bateman can be out of there a lot sooner than people realize. And
yeah.
I think that people are thinking he's young, he's going to be there forever, but he's coming up on, and you know, he's got, after this year is being his contract year, and I know that he was kind of making some waves about being unhappy even before this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that finishes up our first round. I'll just recap real quick, and then we'll move on to the second. I want to also say, way to go, guys, on not drafting Will Levis in the first round, though I'm pretty sure he's coming up soon here. But at 101, Scott took Bijan. 102, Anthony Richardson. 103, CJ Stroud. I took Bryce Young at 4. Mike took Jahmyr Gibbs at 5. At 6, Jagger went JSN. 107, Dalton Kincaid. 108, Jordan Addison. 109, Quentin Johnston. 110, Zach Charbonnet. 111, Michael Mayer. And 112, wide receiver Zay Flowers, which brings us back to Scott at 201.
It is time to stay on brand. And last year at this time, I took Kenny Pickett, even though I don't like him, but that's the process. You guys made fun of me. I still did it. Here we are, and I'm going to do it again. Will Levis, 201. That's just my process. I'm taking quarterbacks. So the guy's going to play. Tannehill, yeah, he's toast, man. He's either going to be hurt or just moving on because they don't want to win game. I don't know. They're very confusing right now. They're like trying to retool, but they're not. So whatever. Levis is going to play this year, and you know, we'll see. Maybe I can flip him for a 24 first, or even a 25 first, or maybe even a 26 first. But I'll turn that second into a first, and I'll call it a win.
See, my thing is with even at 201, I don't love taking him. I might take him there, but I just think, and again, maybe I'm over the top with how, you know, I don't. It's getting close to how I was with Zach Wilson, but I did turn out to be correct there. But I think he's going to come in and not be good, and he doesn't have I was the number 2 overall pick capital to hold value if he comes in and is not good. So that's what scares me about him, is like, he's a quarterback that I don't believe will succeed, and he's not going to necessarily hold value if he doesn't succeed, even if he starts this year. But I definitely would like to get some other people's thoughts on Levis, because I'm very kind of over the top against Levis.
My concern is that he never really gets a shot, because, you know, the Titans are on an 8-game losing streak right now, and they really fell apart at the end of last year. And I don't know that the Titans are what we thought they were 2 years ago when they were the first seed in the AFC. And so if they're in position, or if they're able to draft him outright or able to move up into position to get a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, I mean,
That's
Will
fair.
Levis might never even get a shot. You know, he might languish and end up there. And I think it's fair to question if Malik Willis ever really got a fair shot, to be honest. But, you know, dropping to the third round is a little bit different than early second round. But again, it's one of those that you're not feeling like you're married to the guy, because if that does happen, you're going to have an entire new regime in place making that decision, I would think.
And if I was just going to say, if that pans out, it would be kind of hilarious that they took in the last 2 years, 2 quarterbacks that we thought were going to go in the first round and were going to be extremely fantasy relevant. And then neither of them really got a shot and they take a third one. But anyway, Matt, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just going to make a dumb joke that I forgot already. So, oh no, I know what it was. I think he just called Will Levis a less smart Josh Rosen, is what I think the Jeff.
Yeah, basically. Yep.
I mean, honestly, for me, I've been pretty low on Levis, but to add a little bit positivity on it, I think he was drafted to the ideal spot because Tennessee doesn't particularly ask their quarterbacks to do a whole lot, and that's why someone like Tannehill has thrived there, or thrived, whatever you want to. You know, he had a couple of good seasons there so long, and I know that Arthur Smith was a big part of that success, but they essentially hired the tight ends coach that uses essentially the same system that Arthur Smith uses. So that is one caveat that I'll add, and I will take Levis if I'm QB needy and desperate in like a super flex league, because you have to sometimes. But Jeff makes an excellent point that the Titans are just ungood and he might not get a chance. So it's a risk because he doesn't see the field well. He has some mechanical issues, specifically throwing to his left. He throws against his body, which on your blind side right there, that's interception city right there. And I don't know, that's just my analysis on it.
He takes a sack on 1 every 4 pressure drop backs, 26.8% of the time. That's going to kill NFL offenses. I forget again. I'm pulling out these stats that I cannot remember the exact stats, so it's probably not helpful. But there's some stat out there that it's like, I think it's like 40% or 60%. Don't quote me on it. Some significant number that if you take a sack on a drive, you're probably not going to score, basically. And he takes a lot of sacks, and he's inaccurate. So I just think both of those things are going to kill him.
Plus, he puts mayo in his coffee, so he's clearly a psychopath. So,
and eats bananas with the whole peel on it. I think those were just jokes, but still, like that's
Extra
even more
protein,
sad.
man. Got to get that protein in there.
Mike, we've heard from everyone else. Any thoughts on Levis before we move on?
Yeah, I don't hate Will Levis as much as everyone else. He's got a big arm. He's got a quick release. I know people were knocking him because he couldn't beat out Sean Clifford. That wasn't Will Levis's fault. That was James Franklin's fault. James Franklin, to a fault, is way too loyal to his upperclassmen. Although I do think that's starting to change. Well, of course, when you recruit Nico Singleton and Katron Allen, you're going to play those guys over Kayvon Lee or whoever else they had there. But yeah, look, statistically, he wasn't the best. He does take a lot of hits. I really appreciate how that's got to be Kevin, because when the first comment came up, Jeff was speaking, so I'm assuming he wasn't trolling me. Thanks, buddy. But yeah, and they did also say that Kentucky's offensive line was terrible, so you can't put that all on him. He's going to get an upgrade at offensive line. My concern for Will Levis, what weapons does he really have? He has Derrick Henry. He has Treylon Burks, who wasn't what we thought he would be last year. He had some injuries as well. And then you got what, aside from that? Chigun Okonkwo, who we kind of like. But what's he going to be? So, you know, like Jeff was saying, there could be a possibility here that if they're not good, they just move on. And I hate seeing guys like Malik Willis, even Matt Corral, never even really get a chance to do anything. Will Levis could be that next guy. But this is the point of the draft that you're at. In the Superflex League, you have to take those chances, unfortunately.
I think there's 2 interesting sliding doors moments on Levis, because there's the comments that Jim Irsay said that the Colts were willing to take him at 4 had Anthony Richardson not been on the board. And so, you know, we could be living in a reality where Will Levis goes 4th overall in the NFL draft. And then the other interesting, less so moment is Brandon Beane basically said that a deal was done with the Titans, where the Titans would have come up to 27 if Dalton Kincaid wasn't on the board and the Bills didn't move up there. And so all of a sudden you're, you know, the imaginary line between being the second player drafted in the second round versus still being a first round pick is still kind of in play there too. So it's just an interesting thought exercise of the different realities that you could be living with Will Levis. But unfortunately, we're in the worst timeline. So here we are.
Jeff, I have a question. Does anyone really want to believe anything that comes out of Jim Irsay's mouth right now? I mean,
I think
guy,
that Jim Irsay is capable of anything. So I think that the Colts were 100% married to taking quarterback, and so but that's that. It's interesting to me because it opens up some questions on Anthony Richardson where we're like, hey, he went 4th overall in the draft. Like, all right, he's got it. But this is also the team that's evaluating Will Levis as being worth the 4th overall pick in the draft. And so, Anthony Richardson could have been sitting until 25 and we're freaking out. So, I mean,
they could have shocked us all and been like 4th overall, Tanner Morgan. Let's go. He's our guy. But they didn't. And here we are. So we got to be thankful for that.
Jim Irsay's the type of guy that you'll run into if you stay at a party too late and then he's just trying to tell you about cryptocurrency and you can't escape that conversation.
He's that uncle on holidays where you're like, great, who invited this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, now I got to talk. Please don't hug my wife, sir. Let's just go to a different room.
One too many eggnogs at Christmas.
I have a great expert panel available, and we're kind of in that range. I have a trade question for you guys. Would you rather have the 204 or would you rather have the 304 in a 24 second?
204.
204.
I could get that 24-second next year in the offseason.
Yeah, I think so. Although I don't love the 204, then I'm going to have to pick here soon. But
you're going to get a good player, Rocky.
You got this, Rocky. We believe in you.
But we're not there yet because we're at Matt at 202.
Yeah, I'm going to take I don't know if he's my favorite, but I think he's one of the most fun players in this draft. There's 2 running backs here that I'm considering, but the more fun one to me is Devin A-Chain from Texas A&M, Olympic level speed, 4.32 40, 10.02 in the 100-meter, power, strength, contact balance, can't arm tackle the guy, leg drive, creates extra yardage for a back his size. He's not going to get 20 carries in a game, probably too much in the NFL, but he did average nearly that at Texas A&M last year, including 38 carries against LSU. So I think he's a different kind of back for his size, and the track record certainly isn't great for running backs his size per JJ Zacharyson of all running backs since 2011 that went to the combine or were drafted and weighed under 200 pounds. 0 have had a season of at least 15 points per game across their first 3 seasons. The closest was Andre Ellington and Tariq Cohen. So not great company there, but I just really love the player. I love the fit. He goes to a team that's all about speed and he offers speed. And I'm just not afraid of Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, really, from a production and efficiency standpoint. He may only get 10 to 15 touches a game. He may only get 12 touches a game, whatever it is. I think he's going to be efficient enough on those touches to put up fantasy numbers for us. So Devin A-Chain here.
And this is, I think, including trade addicts leagues, which the scoring that we're drafting under is based on. I think this may be the latest I've seen A-Chain go. Is this mock?
He's a 110 for me, I think.
Yeah, I've usually seen him go in the late first. I think I saw 1-201. He's 202 in this draft, so good value there, Matt. But we're to Jeff at 203.
Yeah, I'm going to stick true to my board. I'm going to go Kendre Miller here. I think that he's in a situation with the Saints where that could open wide open. You look at it right now and it looks crowded, but we've seen that before. Even Alvin Kamara, when Alvin Kamara came in, that looks incredibly crowded when he was a rookie. And then they cut Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram kind of took a step back, and Kamara immediately contributed as a rookie. We don't know what's going to happen with Kamara if suspension is going to come down. That's lingering. We might see a Saints team that enters a little bit of a rebuild that maybe decides to move off him. And then Jamal Williams was very, very productive last year, but I think we have a long track record of knowing what Jamal Williams is. And if he's able to duplicate that production, I mean, hats off to him. But I think that, I don't think any of us were buying Jamal Williams at this point last year, short of like a throw in or on a trade or maybe a late third or something like that. But to buy in too much long term is just not there. And so Miller, that day 2 draft capital, landing in a depth chart that I think could clear out for him, doesn't have the injury concerns of some of the other guys around in the same area, and just a safer running back pick.
Love it.
I thought you were going to say something there, Jagger. Now
I was, but I just I'm not into Kendre Miller, and it's just it was a head scratcher of a pick to me because I don't know what he does that much better than Jamal Williams. I don't find him to be particularly that great of a receiver, and I wish he would run with his size. He can lower his shoulder, but a lot of times he plays like a smaller back all the time, and it bugs me. So I thought it was a head scratcher for draft capital and landing spot, but to go with process, I can't really argue with Jeff. So that's why I was just going to shut up.
Well, he's 8 years younger than Jamal
I was
Williams.
gonna say.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's a great spot for him. He's the biggest mover among the running backs for me. He moved up 4 spots, I think. I just think like you said, it's a great situation. Kamara gets suspended. Jamal Williams is old. Like, it just seems like the runway is so short for him. The pass catching is a concern. 6% best season reception share. But at this point in the draft, like, you're looking for any kind of upside, and I think he's got it there.
Yeah, 203. This is a slam dunk. I'm just being a hater, Jeff. That's just
good. No, but it's. I mean, it's a tier breaker. It's we got some clarity in the draft because you coming in, you kind of had him sitting there with other running backs in the tiers, and now you know where everybody is, and he moves to the top of that.
Yeah, I thought I might be taking Kendre Miller at the 204, and that was the one I was kind of okay with. But since he is now gone, I don't have a ton of deep analysis here, but I'm going to go with Sam Laporta. Good draft capital. Iowa likes to pump out those tight ends, some better than others. And he goes to a spot with some really good opportunity in an offense surrounded, he's surrounded by other good offensive weapons, so the pressure's not going to be on him. So Sam Laporta is my pick at 204. Jagger,
fantastic.
Thought he was going to fall.
Yeah. Sam Laporta, I got sniped twice. I got sniped in real life, and then this happened, and it's a sad day. I love Sam Laporta. I think you pretty much nailed it. He's an Iowa tight end with great athleticism. Those are 2 sticky stats for tight ends, and we don't have a lot. So,
Okay, so now we're back to Michael Bower at the 205.
I want to say I love the Sam Laporta pick. Also, we should be paid by the University of Iowa for having to scout that terrible offense because it's that bad. But that being said, I don't know how. Oh, wait, he has gone. I was not paying attention. My bad. That's okay. I'm still getting my guy here because you know what? If you listen to my show, I talk about this guy constantly. I love him. I'm going with Marvin Mims here.
I love it.
From Oklahoma. I love Marvin Mims. People tell me I'm crazy. But when he got drafted, they showed the highlights, him just going up, yank it out of the air, his body control, his bend, I guess they call it. I don't know. They usually use that for linemen, but just the things that he could do in the air, tracking it. Going back to Arlad's depth chart, he's only sitting behind Tim Patrick. Who's Tim Patrick? He's fine. Tim Patrick's a guy that he was kind of like Zach Pascal a couple years ago. You have a wide receiver get hurt, you pick him off of waivers for $1. After the week you drop him, you lather, rinse, repeat. That's what Tim Patrick is to me. They've talked about shopping Cortland Sutton or Jared Jeudy. Judy's option was picked up, so Sutton could be on the move, in which case I think Mims has a chance to hopefully get some playing time. And Russell Wilson has to be better, right? Because behind him is Jarrett Stidham and Jarrett Guarnatano. I'm sorry, I do not know who that is. I should know who that is, but I don't. Russell Wilson has to be better, which means the whole offense gets better. So sign me up for Marvin Mims. I love this dude. He's been my guy since the day I scouted him, and I scouted him pretty early in the process too. So sign me up. And now Jagger, back to you.
I have to pick between 2 people. I love Tank Bigsby, hate the situation. And I guess just again, sticking with objective process, I'm going to pick Jaden Reed here. He's a receiver that I've been high on before he even got the draft capital. He reminds me of a lot of Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think that he could be like a number 1 receiver or whatever you think that is, as far as continually being able to beat like double coverage. But as a slot guy, I think he's in the perfect situation, and I love what the Packers are doing to support Jordan Love. And most importantly, when you build a wide receiver room, you kind of build it like a basketball team. And then, you know, you got your long ball threat in Christian Watson, who can be like the home run hitter. You know, he's like your Klay Thompson, but the guy that can consistently win and deke and dunk and hit you with 2-pointers. That's Jaden Reed right here. I think he can eat a lot of volume. And at the end of the day, maybe not in real life football, but for fantasy, I think we could consider Jaden Reed better than Christian Watson in PPR formats because he's someone that can get targets. And again, just to bring everyone back down to reality, he doesn't have a great catch radius. That could hurt him as far as like getting touchdowns and something like that. But I definitely love him in the situation. So this is a smash for me.
And okay, so Scott, we're back to you now. 207 for your last pick.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a couple better players on the board. I generally like to lean running backs when I'm not taking quarterbacks. In this case, at 207, it might be just a bit early, but I've seen him go in this range in my actual draft. So I'm going to take Tyjae Spears. Understand the knee concern and all that. Frankly, I don't really care about long-term with running backs. I mean, I'm going to generally grab them and utilize them for the first few years. Maybe I won't get a ton out of him with Derrick Henry still there this year. But I'm good with taking a shot on him here over some of these other wide receivers that, you know, I don't know what kind of production I'm going to get from them.
Okay, and I guess we're getting far into the podcast, so I'll just move right along here. Matt, you're up next. 208.
Are we going to talk about any players that we would like to take outside of this range? Because I want to take a player. I want to talk about a player that probably doesn't deserve to go here, but I kind of want to take him.
After the 212,
right.
I was going to ask you all for at least one name that we hadn't heard yet.
Perfect. In that case, I'll just go by my board, and I think it's time for the other quarterback here, Hendon Hooker. He's in a great spot with behind Jared Goff, who, you know, if he plays well again, if Goff plays extremely well again this year, maybe we have a conversation about him getting extended in Detroit and being there more long term. But right now, it seems like it's a good spot for him to heal, to learn behind an organization that I like the direction, even maybe despite the questionable picks from an NFL standpoint in this draft class. But he's got athleticism. He's smart, but he played in a gimmicky offense. So we don't really know what we have with him. But at this point, I'll take the quarterback value.
I want to take my pick back. We left the guy on the board, and I can't believe it. Like I'm so angry at myself.
Oh, did I miss somebody?
I know who you're saying, but
oh, I see.
I know
who it is. I know how do we do that? God,
I know
we're real professionals over here.
Okay, so we are back to Jeff at the 209.
If I'm on the clock, this is probably going to be Tank Bigsby just because the way that my rosters are structured. I'm just going to throw darts at running backs. But I'm going to deal with Rashee Rice. And I know the other guy that you guys are probably talking about, and I understand where you're going there. But Rashee Rice had a disastrous Senior Bowl. But other than that, he had a great combine. And he lands Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. And I think that, you know, there's a heavy fade going on because we all got burnt last year with Sky Moore and then, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But, I mean, you're talking about the late second round. You're buying. I think there's worth taking upside shots. You hit an upside shot on Patrick Mahomes, wide receiver, that could potentially be his wide receiver one moving forward. I mean, that's a top 12 dynasty wide receiver moving forward if that pick hits because of the offensive environment where he's sitting. And so I think that while I understand some other places to go here and maybe some safer picks, it's just that upside bet that, again, I don't think other guys have that ceiling in this area.
I love it. He's got size. He's got athleticism.
Yeah,
he's got Patrick Mahomes. He's got everything you want.
Everything you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's back to me at the 210, and I am again just late second. I'm just gonna go on Draft Capital and take Jonathan Mingo. he's potentially the top receiver there. I don't love anybody at this range at this point. There's some guys I might be interested in that aren't really going this high, but I think Bigsby would be one I would consider too. I do think he could get a little more work there than we think. But I'm just going to take the shot on Jonathan Mingo here and move on. We'll move on to the two. Well, I know Jagger was shocked when I said that. You hate Jonathan Mingo that much?
I don't like him either. I think he's a trap.
I don't like him, and I'm not gonna say anything. There's one more pick. Let's just keep plugging along.
Yeah, I don't know. As somebody that isn't like, I've done a fair amount of rookie drafts before the draft, and I got Jonathan Mingo in either undrafted or the 4th round in almost every single one of them. So like, I have my exposure to Jonathan Mingo. I just can't imagine touching him in the 2nd round.
Okay, so horrible pick by me. 211, Michael Bower.
No, it was a great pick, Rock. Yeah, I love it. There.
This Slade, you can't argue with draft capital. That's Slade.
Yeah.
But,
That's basically what it was for me.
And that's what I'm going to do. Again, I'm going to go back to the tight end 1.75 tight end premium. I know I'm saying his name wrong, but if you lived in Pennsylvania, you would say it like Luke Schoonmaker of the Dallas Cowboys, tight end from Michigan. Also, who keeps putting Go Blue? Is that Sidlow? Man. Killing me. So this goes against the every fabric of my being. He's a Michigan product playing for the Dallas Cowboys. It just feels so dirty. I'm a Penn State fan and an Eagles fan, but draft capital doesn't lie. For once, the Dallas Cowboys did the right thing. They didn't really reach on somebody. Admittedly, we hadn't scouted him, and then he got drafted, and we're like, well, I guess we have to look at this guy now. And we turn on the tape, and we're like, okay, yeah, I understand why the Cowboys drafted him. There were times where he was just absolutely wide open in the middle of the field. And, unlike other guys, the quarterback threw him the ball and he caught it. We've seen times where guys are wide open and they just overthink it. Schumacher's physical. I love him at the catch point. Good hands. Pretty good after the catch, too. Doesn't look like he'd be good after the catch, but he is.
It's weird.
211. I love the value, and hopefully Jagger still gets his guy here because he's smiling. Are you happy?
I'm ecstatic.
Right.
What I did, guys, is I pulled a Detroit. I picked the wrong pick first, and then I fixed it later in the draft. It's a steal,
You're
guys.
welcome.
It's Josh Downs. It's Josh Downs at the 212. I don't know how I let him fall here. I don't care about the round 3 draft capital. It's day 2, and I think he immediately slides in to like a Devontae Smith type role into this offense with, like you got Alec Pierce playing like the not Quintez Cephas, what's his name? Quez Watkins, over the top of the defense. And then maybe we see Michael Pittman play a very, 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 very poor imitation of AJ Brown in comparison. But him being with Reggie Wayne and getting drafted into an offense or overall just a team that is a lot better. I think he could, I'm not going to say like a wide receiver 1, but he could give you consistent wide receiver 2 numbers just from the PPR value. He plays bigger than his size. I don't think he consistently win outside, especially, you can't expect him to be an X because he can't really beat the press. But if you put him in like a flanker role with a Z or move him inside in the formation in the slot, I think he can consistently eat targets. And again, he's not going to be asked to be the wide receiver 1 right away because Michael Pittman is there, regardless of what you think about him. So this is a slam dunk pick. I'm excited. I think I won the draft. So
I want to throw out some concerns with him, and not the player himself, but just the landing spot, because Indianapolis has this rushing quarterback. They have Jonathan Taylor. They have 2 massive tight ends in Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods. And I just feel like they're going to play 12 personnel and want to run the crap out of the ball. And if Downs is a true slot, does he get on the field enough to get enough volume to be useful in fantasy? And then you throw on the top Anthony Richardson's issues with targets in the short and intermediate area of the field. I know Downs can win downfield, so they'll match up that way. I just am concerned that if they run 12 personnel most of the time and want to run the ball, does Downs get enough time on the field?
That's fair. Can't really argue against that. Maybe the 212 is ideal.
I'm not trying to crap on it because I love the player. I love the player. I just, thinking ahead, what this offense could be. I mean, who knows what it's going to be, right? But that's what it feels like it's going to be.
My question is, do you think Alec Pierce is a better player than Josh Downs?
Not like if you just put him right next to it, sure, not at all. But like in terms of playing on the outside,
Offense.
maybe on the outside,
Yeah.
maybe.
We have a couple of Eagles fans here, and do you guys think that Josh Downs could do the things that Devonta Smith did in the Eagles offense last year?
No.
Yeah.
Devonta Smith is not, or Josh Downs is not Devonta Smith.
Well, he didn't go
Devonta
10th overall in
Smith-
the draft, but
I mean, Devonta Smith ruined a lot of these other prospects because you're going to see, I think scouts are now seeing like, well, Smith was skinny, so these other skinny receivers can play. Devonta Smith is, he is his own anomaly. I was excited when they drafted him. I'm like, this guy's not going to be able to withstand the pounding of the NFL. And he proved me wrong. He is a lot tougher than his frame would suggest. And his route running is some of the best I've ever seen. And that's coming in from day one.
His
Yeah.
body control is amazing too. Like you see catches
is.
from the sideline, things like that.
And my
yeah.
prediction too is that he's an Eagle longer than AJ Brown is, personally.
That's a fair assumption. I think one, he's got the first round draft capital, so like you already have him for 3 years regardless.
Yeah.
And AJ Brown isn't a finesse player, so once that athleticism goes, you could expect a lot of his game to go along with it.
For sure.
Well, thanks guys for being a wet blanket. I'm not Josh Downs.
Listen, if I got Josh Downs at the 212 in one of my,
yeah,
I'd be
that's
thrilled
not
about
happening
that. To be honest with you,
Agreed.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that finishes up our second round. I know. I think it was Puff Pass Kick in the chat said we could do a third round, but we're not doing a third round. We're very well into
buddy.
this, as we usually are on Junkies. We're very far into this podcast. But I'll recap the second round like I did with the first, and then I did want to ask each of you if you could just briefly give a guy we did not draft here. You want to that you're looking at in the third or fourth rounds here. But for the second round, we had 201 Will Levis, A-Chain at 202, Kendre Miller 203, Sam Laporte at tight end at 204, Marvin Mims 205 at 6, Jaden Reed at 7, Tyjae Spears 208, Hendon Hooker, Rashi Rice at the 209, Jonathan Mingo at the 210, Luke, I don't even know how to say his last name, at the 211.
Schumacher.
And Josh Downs at the 212. So I'll start right below me, Jeff, with you. Give us a guy here, somebody you're looking to target in the third or fourth round.
So we talked about a little bit when I made the Kendre Miller pick about differentiation in that running back tier, who landed where and separation. Is Iggy Abanikanda landed at that back end of that? And I think that talent-wise, he's still probably pretty close to being in that tier. Landed with the Jets, and I think that people see that and they think, well, Breece Hall's there, he's stuck there. But there's a rumor that came out today that the Jets were looking at taking Jamar Gibbs, and so there's some questions about what they want to do with that backfield, if they want to rotate some bodies there. And so him landing there, and the questions about Breece Hall's recovery, I mean, that could be a week 1 starter in that backfield very, very easily. And so that's a guy that he's really slipping later in drafts because landing in the 5th round, being potentially buried, that I think it's worth the dart throw.
Okay, Mike, anybody you want to throw out there?
Well, like I always tell people, if you're drafting starters in the third round, like I need a guy to start right now. You got to reevaluate how you build your rosters. But if I have a late third round pick, I don't mind throwing it on Zach Evans. I'm not a big Zach Evans fan, but I feel that is the one landing spot that could actually make him fantasy relevant.
Totally.
Where else he could have went. And again, in the late third round, why not? And if he does anything and you still don't like him and somebody else really wants him, flip him for something else you like or better draft capital. As much as I hate saying draft Zach Evans, if it's late third round, that's fine.
They hate Cam Akers, and Kyron Williams is not going to be a lead back if something does happen to Akers.
Yeah, I've never been a
clean
Kyron Williams guy. So, and I don't understand why they hate Cam Akers. I don't know what's going on there, but we see that coach, if you get in his doghouse, he will get you out of there as fast as possible. So
Matt, I know you have a guy because who is it?
I do, and it's Tank Dell. And I know the size, I know it's gross, all that kind of stuff. But gosh, first in receiving touchdowns with 17. Elite route runner, runs every route. He runs back shoulder fades at that size. He's not going to do that in the NFL, but he just seems like he's always open at the goal line. You see him to get isolated, and he just beats the guy off the line. He does this fake against Tulsa, fakes the fade, and then like just beats his man. It's just so fun. So the thing that I guess we don't really have time to do this, so I'll just throw out my thoughts on it. And if you guys want to go longer, you can. But to me, with Tank Dell comes a conversation of how exactly size affects the wide receiver position. And for me, there are three main ways. Number one is not necessarily in this order, but number one, injury concerns, size, all that kind of stuff. But Tank Dell has not missed a single game in college football at his size. Number two, contested catch ability against bigger defenders. But Tank was 7 for 13 on contested catch opportunities, compared to Quentin Johnston, who is 6-7 inches taller and 40 or 50 pounds heavier. He was just 8 of 23 on contested catch situations. And then the last one is catch radius, which there's no way you can fix that, right? He's just short, so he's going to have smaller arms. So does he really have the ability to extend for the ball against bigger corners and things like that? So I don't know. There's something about Tank Dell that I love, combined with the fact that CJ Stroud personally wanted them to draft him. I just really like the player and the spot for him, despite the size concerns.
Okay, so Jagger, do you have a guy you want to throw out there?
Roschon Johnson. You want to talk about guys who have immediate path to success? I think he offers something even different than Khalil Herbert has. Khalil Herbert, I think, is a much better, stronger runner. But I think Roschon Johnson is a much better pass blocker and just pass catcher all around. I think it shows sometimes in his film, at least in college, that he wasn't a high school running back, because he tends to let his pads get a little high. He does little things like he kind of lets the ball get away from him a little bit. But that's just me being nitpicky. I've been targeting him everywhere in the third round. And if you're a Devy guy, like a Devy depleted rookie drafts, I'm getting him towards the end of the first round in a lot of places. And I think that's a huge value.
Okay, and I'm not going to give one because Mike stole mine, which was going to be Zach Evans. But Scott, did you have one you wanted to throw out there before we finish up?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of favorites in the third and fourth rounds, but if you're in a Superflex league, and my favorite 4-12 pick, or even if you have 5 rounds, is a guy that's not going to be a starter. He's not going to blow anybody away, but he actually has a better chance of playing this year than anyone thinks, because he plays behind Jimmy G, who's made of glass, and his name is Aiden O'Connell. So he went to Las Vegas. We've seen, Jarrett Stidham had a good game last year, right? So hey, let's go Aiden O'Connell at the 4-12. I'll take a shot on that, stick him on my taxi squad, see if I can get a start or two and flip him later this year.
Okay, so that pretty much finishes us up. For regular listeners, as you may guess, with us being an hour and a half into the show and 4 guests, we are not doing a Find Me a Trade this week, but we will be making up for that in a couple weeks by having an all Find Me a Trade episode coming soon to a live stream near you. But I want to finish up by thanking all 4 guests here tonight, and like I said at the beginning, I want to give you a chance to plug all your stuff. So we'll go back in reverse order the way I just went. So Jagger, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and all that good stuff?
You could find my work at DLF, my written work. I'm now a new co-host of Dynasty Hour at TSS Fantasy. We had our 3rd episode, so give us a listen.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, everything's at DLF Dynasty podcast with Dan Myler and Ryan McDowell, and the Dynasty Game Night podcast with Rocky and Russ and John.
It's a fun time. I think we're going to be doing another one next week.
Yeah.
So, Mike.
You can find me at the Dynasty Rewind hosting it. We drop 2 podcasts a week, and check out our YouTube channel. And you can follow me on Twitter at Rewind CEO.
And we'll finish up with Jeff.
You can find me on Twitter at For Whom J Bell Tolls. Everything's with Football Guys and the Football Guys College Football Show. We had the rookie guide come out. Make sure to check that out. And then also the Devy Royale Patreon and check that out too.
Okay, so all good stuff. Again, want to thank all 4 of you for coming on the show tonight. This has been a great time. A lot of good info. I also, before we get into finishing up with our little pod business here, I did want to plug Larry Monkey has been tweeting out about it. He's calling it Podfest 2023. Me and Mike are going to be with some other people, Larry, Shane Manila, Feverish Fernero from the Rookie Fever podcast. Out in New Jersey, a place called Tavern on the Lake, Heightstown, New Jersey. Told Larry we'd plug it on the show with me and Mike both here. If you want to come out and meet some of us, some of us that you might listen to. It should be a good time. We did it last year without Larry promoting it as Podfest 2022. That we had some of us out there last year too. It was a lot of fun. So it would be awesome to meet some listeners. So if you can make it out there, go look up Tavern on the Lake. I don't have the address in front of me. They're at Tavern on the Lake on Twitter. They have a website, all that stuff, so you can find where it's at. And I know Larry's been tweeting out about it multiple times. So, but with that, we'll finish up the show here. I'm at Dynasty FF Addict. Scott's at Scott_Sidlow. Andrew's not here, so he doesn't get his Twitter handle given out. And you can find the pod at Dynasty Junkies. Follow the DAP Network at DAP_network. And we're also on YouTube under the DAP Network, live streaming every week. So, Scott, why don't you take us out here?
Thanks to all the homies in the chat. Had some celebrities in there tonight, so appreciate you guys for coming out. Get your FMAT submissions in for FMAT Palooza. And with that, for Matt Price, Michael Bower, Jeffrey Fisher Bell, Jagger May, Rocky Petrella, I'm Scott Sidlow. Love you, Shane Manila. Junkies out.